Okay, so what are we doing today? Today, we're looking at webhooks, specifically webhooks coming from Stripe and getting stored in Firebase, which in my case is for a Flutter application, but you may find some other uses for this. So what are we doing? We have a Firebase project with Firestore as the database, of course, and we've got a document collection called webhooks. And what we'd like to do is every time we get a webhook sent from Stripe, we'd like to grab that, throw it in the database, and then process it not in the same transaction, but in a separate one. So we're going to build that today. It's relatively quick, but I haven't seen it done on YouTube before, so let's put it together. Actually, before I do it, because we'll just be spending the rest of the time in code, I'll send this right now and show you what I'm doing. So this is going to create over here a document that starts with A, so we can see the difference. So very quickly, it's going to run a second function to process the webhook. And right now it doesn't do anything, but we'll just give it a show to see what happens here. So we're going to send a webhook of the type account updated, and we're going to send it, and we're going to flip over here quickly. And there we go. ACCT has happened. And oh, it's already processed. We're going too quickly. Let me delete that, and you will see I've got these things at the top here, and the one we're going to be looking at is the status of processed. I'll delete this, send it one more time quickly, and hopefully I'm going to use my mouse quickly enough to catch this. So send over here, account. Oh, way too fast. Okay, so let's have a look at what we've done in the code. So if you saw my previous video on payment processing with Stripe, you'll see we needed to create something called a payment intent. I'm going to use the same project. The link will be in the description for the GitHub repo. So first things we're going to do, I guess I could just tell you this as well. I've got two separate webhooks coming from Stripe. Back over here, because you're using Connect, you actually get two separate webhooks, and sometimes you really, at least I don't understand where things are coming from. So what I've done is I've created two endpoints. One is /WHCA webhook for Canada, I'm Canadian, and then a separate one for Connect. Now, one thing to note is that there's a secret for both of them, and they're both different, and they, as far as I can tell, you can't make them the same. So you really will have to set this up doubly if you're using Connect. If you're not, well, you can get away with it. I guess the last thing I'll show over here is if we have a look, we've got this thing set to log so that whenever the webhook processor runs, it says the account is updated. And if it's something that I'm not controlling and I'm not looking at, it'll send me an error, which is not visible. Okay, so we'll see that in the code. To the code we go. So as I was saying earlier, we have two different webhooks coming in from Stripe, and we will need to set the key inside our functions config. You should have already done that if you've done anything to do with Stripe. So require Stripe functions config Stripe secret key is what I'm using for regular Stripe communications. And then in this case, we are going to need the two webhook keys. So I've named them Stripe Webhook and Stripe Connect Webhook. So what are we going to do? So we're going to have the webhook processor, which will do the processing, and we're going to have receive webhooks from Stripe and webhooks from Stripe Connect. So these are going to be our three functions. Numbers 1 and number 2 are going to be duplicates, and the only exception is that they're going to be using a different key. So I'll write the first one and we'll deal with, oh yeah, and number 3, we'll process them. So Step 1, where are we at? Let's do a new exports, and we're going to call it webhook. Stripe webhook. Sure. That has to be set inside the endpoint. It needs to be set inside your webhooks. In this case, I'll just use the same ones I'm using here, WHCA and WHCA Connect. So I'll call this one WHCA. And it is an HTTPS endpoint. And I can't spell. It's async. Take in the response, spit out, take in the request, spit out the response. And what do we got here? So we've got the webhook secret, which we're going to pull in. And we're going to figure out the signature let. Stripe will send this to authenticate. So we're pulling in the payload, we're grabbing the signature, and we're going to try to see what we can do with what we get. So the event, or the webhook event, is going to be Stripe Webhooks construct event, bring in payload string, the signature, and the webhook secret. And we're going to see if that all matches. And if it doesn't match, we can log it. And we'll send a message back to Stripe the same way, saying we had a problem. And we don't have any problems. We will continue. Yeah, the next thing I will do is make sure that we don't already have this event. So if we do, we don't want to handle the same webhook twice. Luckily, we get a unique identifier from Stripe every time they send a webhook. If they send it twice, we want to ignore it. So we're going to look inside Firestore to see if we already have it. So we're going to open the collection called webhooks and see if we have a doc with the ID of data object.id. We're going to wait for that, and if we don't have it, we'll do something else. We'll just say thank you very much and not do very much. Stripe won't care about what we send them, but it'll make me feel better anyway that I've said it's a duplicate. All right, so we've got no document. We're going to do something. where's this one coming from? WHCA. So initially we will set the status to be unprocessed, or we could call it new. What am I missing? Oh. And we will set the type. Now I'm just setting everything with an A at the front, just because of how it looks when it's in Firestore. Realistically, they don't need to be this way, but if it's at the top of the list, it's easier for debugging. And that'll be the event.type from above. Now we'll use the spread operator to put them all together. Status, and I recently learned that little way of putting things together, and it's really handy when you're trying to add objects into a JSON document. So what this is going to do is it's going to build the document that we see over here. It's going to put all the fun stuff that we see in coming from Stripe, which is a lot of information, which at some point maybe we'll deal with, maybe we won't. But the most important stuff for right now anyway, for debugging, is the source, the status, and the type. In my case, I'm really looking for this account updated field, and I need to do some stuff for my app that way. So back to the code, we've got the source, the status, the type, and we combine it with the data object, which is what we receive. Then now what we're going to do, we're going to put that onto the server. So we will take the hook reference and we will set the combined object. That's pretty much to it. You know, we will return a 400 success to the webhook, and we will be good to go. And that's really all there is to it. So let's go back through and make sure we haven't missed anything. We've got an on-request HTTPS function. It's going to grab the webhook configuration secret from our configs. And then we're going to grab the payload. We're going to construct an event which is part of the Stripe library. We're going to use the payload, the signature, and our webhook secret to make sure it all matches and it's authenticated. If not, we're going to say goodbye, and then we're going to add a few things into the webhook document, and we're going to send it to Firebase, and we're good. So I'll do a quick duplicate of this because it's almost exactly the same. And we'll throw it for connect. So call this WHCA connect. We will grab the other key. Everything else is going to be the same. Go through it. It's also going into the webhooks collection. And we'll change the source to WHCA connect. And we're done. That part was easy. Okay, next we'll process it. This is just going to be an onCreate function, which the functions will watch the Firestore database, and as soon as it notices a new document in webhooks, it will process it. bring in snapshot and context. And we will get to work. So our data will be the snapshot.data. And if it's processed, we will stop. If it's not processed, then we will get to move, and we will get moving. So if data.aStatus, we're done. If not, we'll run a switch on the type. And in my case, I'm just going to be looking for this account updated field. So if it's account.updated, we will do something. And if it's not, we'll go to our default statement, and we'll send a log. Just because it's unhandled doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It just means that we don't know what to do with it, and throwing it in the logs is never a bad idea, right? What else are we going to do with it? I guess we'll just break. And then we will return snapshot ref set the aStatus line to say processed. Most importantly, we'll say this is a merge true. Otherwise, it will get rid of all the other lines in the document, which would be not a good thing. So let's go back through it. Okay, what are we going to do if it's account updated? Let's say we'll log that separately just for the sake of argument. Something like that. Obviously, your uses will be different than mine, so I won't bother putting my stuff in there for you. Okay, so we're going to go through it one last time to make sure everything is right. We're calling it webhook processor, and we're saying when you receive or when you notice that a new webhook document has been created, we're going to make sure its status is not processed. And if it is not processed, we will switch based on what the type is. Just taking a look at account updated at this point, we'll send a log. Otherwise, we'll send a generic log. And that's all there is to it. So once again, let's go through here and double check what we've done. We're going to receive a webhook. We're going to check the signature. If the signature does not match, we will do nothing and say goodbye, bye-bye. Otherwise, we will make sure that this is a new document. And if it is a new document, then we'll append or prepend in, I guess in this case, our stuff. We will set the type, and we will send it up to Firestore, which will then be noticed by the webhook processor, which will then process it the way we want it to do. And if everything is looking correct, it'll look like this. Let's charge captured. There we go, that's flicking. And already it's processed. There you go. So we've captured a charge and we're good. Everything is working. So there you have it. That's how to send your Stripe logs over to Firebase and process them. Have yourself a great day.